All right. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to speaker Chuck Zamora. Chuck completed his undergrad in psychology and sociology, and then had the opportunity to move to Australia to teach primary school while working on his master's in education. Following a successful educational career teaching for more than a decade in both the United States and Australia, he left the field of education and joined a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company, working his way from salesperson to sales manager, and then a position territory manager, which we would call a regional vice president here in the States. While still at that company, he was offered the position as the Asia Pacific Regional Training Director. And his wife looked at him and said, if they think you're good enough to do that, why don't you set up your own training company? And he quit the next day, and for 31 years has been writing and conducting workshops in sales, leadership, customer service, and personal development through his company, the Zamora Group International, also known as the Learning Company. For the last 20 years, he has worked with over 93,000 high school students on 2 continents and in 3 countries through a program called the Tools of Life and Leadership. Please join me in welcoming Chuck Zamora.
Thank you. Trying to be able to put a program together for like roughly 90 minutes is really difficult when you're used to speaking all day. So what we're doing is grabbing a bunch of pieces out of a lot of workshops that I've developed over the years. And I'll just quickly reiterate, I was working on a master's degree in education. I have 2 degrees, I got one in psychology and I got one in education. I was studying at San Diego State University, and I was walking out a hall one day, and there was a poster that said, teach in Australia. Those interested, go to SS 109 at a certain time, information session. So I went, and they said, we'll fly you down at our expense. You can have residency visas, so we wouldn't have a green card, you'd be a resident of Australia, and you can work tax-free for 2 years. So I weighed up taking an adventure or finishing my master's, and I took the adventure. A year later, a young lady from Madison saw the same poster, went. The day she arrived, we met. She then chased me for months. That's a lie. We eventually got married. She's a music educator, and we spent the next 30 years in Australia. I left education, joined a big multinational corporation, ended up a regional vice president, and then they offered me the job as the Asia Pacific Regional Training Director. But it meant I was going to have to move to another city. It meant that I was going to have to travel a lot. I was going to be responsible for training all of their staff in Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and then future responsibilities in South Africa. And my boss said, you'll probably not sleep in your own bed 70% of your working life, as long as you're in that role. And I was recently married, and that didn't sound attractive. So I went home and I said to my wife, this is what I've been offered. She said, look, it's your career. If that's what you want to do, I'm behind you. But I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to do that. You know what I'm talking about? And then Trish looked at me and she said, if they think you're that good, and then she had that look like, I don't think you're that good. But if they think you're that good, maybe somebody else would. Why don't you just set up your own training company? And I quit the next day. And for the last 34 years, I have been traveling the world talking to people on leadership and sales and customer service and conflict resolution and negotiating skills and goal setting and communication skills and stuff that I've been writing extensively on for years and years and years and years and years. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. What I want to do today is when I was asked to speak at the World Affairs Seminar, especially when I knew that the title was Global Health and Wellness, I figured there was going to be tons and tons of people that were going to talk about wellness and about global health and about clean water. And there were going to be people that were going to talk to you about all these things we needed to be doing out in the world regarding health. And today, with the onset of 2 years of lockdowns and the pandemic, there's all kinds of mental issues going on, right? Have you guys discussed that already? I would hope, but there's a lot of mental health going on. And so I am not going to talk to you about health and wellness at all. Yeah. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start this presentation with a question. What must you do to bring awareness and importance of global health and wellness? What do you need to do? And I'm going to tell you, it's really simple. This is what I am going to be here today to talk to you about. You need to become a leader. The world is deficient of leaders. And you need to become a leader. You need to be the one that focuses on bringing new ideas to the table and encouraging and inspiring people. Leadership is where it all sits. In this presentation, we will focus on both success, because I think you have to be. You should be driven by success. And we're going to talk about leadership. Two really critical pieces if you're going to become the leader that I think all of you want to be, a leader that all of you should be. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So let me ask you a question. What is success? Now, I don't have the time for people to come scurrying down here and get it on the mic, so you can literally just shout it out from where you're sitting. But does anybody have the guts to just give me an idea what you think success is? Completion of a project? I can't. Okay. Why would it depend on the project? That fascinates me. I don't think success depends on the project at all. Okay, I like that. If you're happy where you are. Okay. Sorry. Oh, reaching the goal you had in mind. I like that too. Well, let me just tell you that I've challenged myself over the years about success. What is it? How do I know if I got it? When do I get it? How do I get it? How do I keep it? All of those kinds of questions were really, really concerning to me as I was growing up. And then, many years ago, I stumbled upon a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson that is my mantra for success. And I think it fits perfectly with the theme for you guys today at the World Affairs Seminar. And here's what he said: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life breathed easier because you live. This is to have succeeded. And that is my mantra for success. Did you notice that nowhere in there did he say you need to make a six-figure income, nor did you need to live in a palatial home, nor do you need to drive a foreign car that has some sort of emblem on it that tells everybody that you're rich. Because listen carefully, kids, success is not what you have, success is who you are. And true success can only be measured when you strip the possessions away. Because when you strip the possessions away, you are left with the character and the ethics and the integrity of the human being, and that is where success must be measured. Thank you. So all of you should embrace the concepts that are in this poem. Let me ask you a question. And it's rhetorical because I don't have time to have everybody giving me feedback. I wish we were in a full-day seminar and I could. But the question is, why would a guy writing a poem on success start it? This is a poem on success. The poem is titled Success. Okay? That's the title of it. Why would a guy writing a poem on success start it with, to laugh often and much? Happiness. Yes, because success is about having a joy-filled life. It's not about the car you drive. It's not about the house you live in. It's not about your bank account. The ultimate measurement is to have a life filled with joy. And the example I like to use when I talk about that is Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa died a pauper. She had no money to speak of, and yet she died an incredibly successful woman who changed the lives of thousands of people. The other thing I think in this particular poem that I want to talk about is he says to find the best in others. That's what leaders need to do. Leaders need to find the best in others. We need to find what it is that I can pull out of that person to help them be the best that they can be. Success is an incredibly important driver as we move this global world that seems to be so tight-knit now. You know that when Martin Luther wrote his treatise, his thesis, and he stapled it to the door on the Vatican. Martin Luther lived in Germany, and he walked to Rome. Let me put that in context for you. Today, somebody could write something and send it to Rome, and how long would it take? That's right, a nanosecond. Bang, it's there. And so the world is moving at a rapid speed, and you and I don't have the luxury of sitting around hoping and wishing and praying that one day maybe we can become a leader. You have to become a leader. We need you to become a leader. You are the future. Leadership is really, really important. How would you define leadership? Sorry? Someone who leads others. Okay, I like that. I'm going to just take that as a really good answer, and I'm just going to expand on it. Leadership is simply the power to influence the performance of others. If you walk out of this room today and you have not either on a pad or if you wrote it down, maybe you don't do it anymore, but you put that in your phone, or you put it on a pad, or you write it in somewhere. If you walk out of here and all you walk out of is the fact that leadership is the power to influence the performance of others, it is worth you being here, because that's what it is. Leadership is all about the power to influence the performance of others, which, by the way, allows us to understand that Hitler was an amazing leader. Awful human being. A disgustingly awful human being, but an amazing leader. Because if you have the power, think about that, to influence a group of people to go out and kill 6 million people just because they're Jewish, you got some serious influencing power going on. You and I want to take this concept of leadership and this power to influence people to the good. We need to get into our communities. I talk about this. I write weekly quotes, and they go out to about 1,000 people around the world. And a quote I wrote recently, I won't give it to you, but the genesis of it all was that we really need to understand that if we're going to change the world, it's going to start in the homes. And then it's going to metastasize to the villages, and then the towns, and then the cities, and then the states, and then the countries. But it's a grassroots effort if we're going to change. If you are going to make a difference as a leader, making awareness of global health and wellness, it's going to start with you, and it's going to start small. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but it requires you to work hard and understand that you have an obligation to influence the performance of other people. And I don't think you would be here in this seminar today if that wasn't a part of who you are. So what you need to have is called personal power. The more personal power you take into any relationship, the less affected you are by someone's positional power. And once you own personal power, you never have to resort to positional power. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that there are principals of schools who use their positional power to try and run a school? No question. Do you think there are principals of schools that run their school with personal power and they drive better schools? No question. There is no question that the outcome from leaders that operate from personal power do more. I don't have the time again today to provide you with all the evidence, but the evidence is there. Are there times that positional power can be very effective? Yes. Let me tell you when that is. In a war. I spent time with the United States Marines. Let me tell you, I would not have ever wanted to be in a foxhole and have my captain or my lieutenant or whoever was above me, the guy in charge with the enemy around us. I don't want him to go, what do you think we should do? Right? I want him to know, I want him to say, you take that flank, you take that flank, you cover here, you do this. And he takes complete positional power. I am the leader, and this is what we're going to do to save our butts. But it's only in times like that that I believe that kind of positional power works. I have had the fortunate opportunity to spend a lot of time with companies as big as Citibank and as small as Subway sandwiches. And I see great leaders all the time, and they're never the ones that hold their leadership based on their position. They hold their leadership based on who they are. So I spent a lot of years after I left education, and then quite honestly, after I left the corporate world, trying to understand all of this. And what I'm going to share with you today is that there are basically 3 things you need to focus on if you are going to become the leader that I hope you become. 3 components. Number 1, communication. And underneath that line, it says, I must become a good communicator. Number 2, attitude. I must work on my attitude daily. You got to do a checkup from the neck up every day. You got to know what you stand for, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You got to work on you, and you got to work on your attitude on a daily basis. And number 3, goal setting. I must set clearly defined goals. Now I'm going to ask you to do something, and I want every one of you, please, to participate in this. I am going to ask you to do something, and then when I say, give me your answer, I want all of you to give me the answer. So I'm looking for everybody to give me a verbal answer. Do you recognize that in these 3 sentences, there are 2 words that are in every sentence? Yes? Okay, now tell me, what are they? Okay, Now, everybody tell me, and you can actually shout this out if you want. Out of those two words, which word do you think I think is the most important? No. Must. Like you failed. The key word is must. You must become a good communicator. You must work on your attitude and your own self-image every day. And you must learn how to set goals. The key word is must. You need to walk out of here knowing that one of the things that Chuck said is that I must work on my communication skills. I got to work on my attitude every day. And that isn't just trying to be positive. That's talking about going out and finding books on attitude, books on self-image, read articles, find out what's going on in relationship to developing a really good, healthy attitude and a healthy self-image. There's scores of things written about it. Attitude is what it's all about. Goal setting. I can't even begin to tell you when I started to really understand the power of setting goals and then learned kind of how to do it, how it changed my life. I would have never built the business I built on a global basis had I not learned how to set some goals and work through the processes. So what I want to do is talk to you today about those things that are so important in making you the leader that I hope all of you want to become in the future, and making you the leader that helps this world solve some of the major problems that are going on. But it comes from leadership. Communication. We're going to play with this one first. Communication is fundamental to personal, social, and professional development. If you want to grow socially, learn how to be a good communicator. If you want to grow personally, learn how to be a good communicator. If you want to grow professionally, learn how to be a good communicator. I sit on a ton over the years of interview panels where I get brought into a company and I sit with the CEOs or the presidents or the owners. And as we're doing interviews, I get to be a part of the interviewing process. And the person that fails to communicate well probably doesn't get a second interview. Communication is omnipotent. It's all powerful. It's one of the things that you and I need to work on every day. And just so you know, many, many, many years ago, when I worked for a big multinational company, I was in a workshop. We had these little breakout groups, and they gave us a little task to do. And then each group chose someone to do the retrieving of what we had come up with. My group chose me. And I had a whole page full of things that I was going to say. I got up in front of 35 of my colleagues. It was just my staff. My knees shook. I got sweaty. And everything that I wanted to say, I said in like 4.5 seconds. And it was the most awful feeling in the whole wide world. I struggled to just say, our group, in discussing the topic, felt that and then delivered it. It was awful. 30, 40 years later, after understanding how important communication was, I learned how to speak. How would you define communication? One person, tell me, what's communication? Yes. Okay, effectively conveying the message you want to convey. Great. I like that. It's almost right. Sorry. Here's what I think it is. Communication is the art of receiving and transmitting information which has been accurately interpreted through both verbal and nonverbal means. That's what it is. Question to all of you. I want you to reread this is just my definition. Didn't come out of a textbook, just came out of my brain. But I think it's right. The art of receiving and transmitting information, which has been accurately interpreted through both verbal and nonverbal means. The art of receiving and transmitting information, which has been accurately interpreted through both verbal and nonverbal means. Now, got a question. If you had to choose one word in my definition that I believe, I want you now to think about, what do you think I think is the most important word in my definition? Receiving, okay? Information, nonverbal, transmitting. Somebody over here said it a moment ago. Art, who said it? All right. Afterwards, who said it? Okay, what's your name? Sorry? Okay. When we're finished, you come and see me, because a few years ago, I published a book of quotes. It's a book of about 115 quotes that I personally wrote. They're all mine. Come and see me, and I'll sign it, and you can have it. Well done. The key word is art. And even though every other word in there I think is an incredibly important word, the key word is art. Why? Because of this. Artist versus technician. The artist speaks, the technician talks. All of you know how to talk. Some of you do too much of it. But from the time you're a little kid, mom and dad try to teach you, right, how to talk, how to say words. Mama, dad, and whatever else goes on. And we all know how to talk. Few know how to speak. The other piece to it is that artists listen, technicians only hear. And again, another piece that if you left and you knew nothing else, or you took nothing else away from me from here today, is this. You hear, listen carefully, you hear with your ear and you listen with your brain. These things here are just designed to take in all of the sounds that come across. You need to learn how to listen with your ears. And when you become really good at communication, you'll learn how to listen with your eyes. Because you'll start to listen to the verbal information, and you'll start to, with your eyes, listen to the nonverbal information. Imagine you just got your hair cut, okay? What's your name? Megan? Megan, you just got your hair cut, and you go and see some friends. They notice you got a haircut, and they go, oh, you got your haircut. It looks so nice. It's like, wait a second, there's like a mixed message going on. You tell my hair looks nice, you're shaking your head, no. At the end of the day, we need to learn how to listen with our eyes. And isn't it true that sometimes we say, I see what you mean? So we must become the artist and learn how to speak. Learn how to make words come alive. Communication is vital in being a leader. So you must develop the ability to speak so people want to listen to you, and develop the ability to listen so people want to talk to you. You want to be in a position that people seek you out to talk to you because you are a good, isn't this true? Even at your young, tender age, don't some of you have a friend that when things aren't going right, you go talk to him or you go talk to her because you know they're going to listen to you, and they're going to listen with empathy and understanding, and they're going to maybe help you make a course correction. And there are other people that you go to them and you say, oh my God, you won't believe. And they're going, yeah, but listen what happened to me. And you're going, I don't care what happened to you. True, right? And so we have to become good listeners. We have to become good speakers. We have to be able to listen so people want to come to us and talk to us. But we also have to be able to develop the ability to speak so that people are going to sit and listen. They're going to want more. And they're going to believe you when you as the leader say, this is where we need to go. But then you as the leader need to be able to listen to them. And if they challenge you, work through that. Communication is incredibly powerful, but you got to learn how to make it work for you. 3 major components of effective communication. Number 1, verbal. The words we use. By the way, does anybody know this? Anybody have any idea how in a whole day of you either being at World Affairs Seminar or being at school or at your job on the weekend or whatever it is you're doing, do any of you have any idea about how many different words you speak in a day? Less than 500. Less than 500 in a whole day. Because you just use the same words over and over and over and over and over and over again. You see what I just did? I said over and over and over and over and over and over again. I said over 7 times, but it only counts 1. Imagine how many times you use the word the, or me, or my, or I. But they each only, you do all through the day, it only counts as 1. So you don't have to have, even though I work at this and I think you should build your vocabulary. But at the end of the day, you use the same words over and over and over. So what you have to do is understand that the words we use account for only about 7% of what is believed. The words we use, excuse me, are relatively ineffective. What is surprising is that the vocal message, how we say those words, accounts for about 36% of what people believe. About 36% of what people believe is based on how you say the words. Imagine if somebody says to you, you look so nice. I'm not sure they think you look nice. Imagine you say, how are you? And they go, happy. It's like, okay. But at the end of the day, how we say the words is powerful. A friend of mine, unfortunately just passed away. He was 84, dear friend of mine. The most positive man I think I've ever known. An incredibly successful gentleman. But no matter what his situation was, 2 years he was in a lockdown because before the pandemic, he cut his foot and it got infected and he was locked in. He couldn't go out of his house. So he spent 2 years locked in his home. The only time he went out was to go to the doctor. His food was brought in. I would take him lunch a couple times a week. But whenever I went to Dave's house, I'd open the sliding glass door and he was sitting at his kitchen table working on his computer. I go, Dave, how are you today? And he'd go, wonderful. And I'm thinking, how the hell could you be wonderful? Like you're sitting in this room every day. But he found the goodness out of every day. Oh, you should have seen the turkeys that ran across the backyard today. Or, oh, aren't the autumn leaves gorgeous? No matter what it was, everything was wonderful. He had this amazing ability to say wonderful like no one I know. But the vocal message is really important. So very quickly, what makes up the vocal message? It's your pace, the pitch, projection. Okay? Pausing. Pausing is really important, by the way. You listen to all of you, listen carefully. Pausing is huge. And here's how pausing can be very effective. If you are giving some really great information, all right? Let's assume you were a student of mine and you were really anxious about a test score, and I knew you got an A, and you came to me and you said, Mr. Zamora, what was my score? And I would say, well, let me have a look. It was an A. And that drives home the wow factor. Now, so pausing is really good when you're delivering good information. Here is the thing you need to understand about pausing. If you're delivering bad information, don't pause. How do they do? You failed. Like you don't want to go, well, let me see. No, just bad information, deliver it, don't pause. Pausing is a powerful tool. Phrasing, learn how to phrase, learn how to make words go together. I wrote a quote years ago that says, business is like bubble gum. Business is like bubble gum. It grows best with consistent and constant pressure. The only reason that that quote works is because of the phraseology. Business is like bubble gum. It goes like this. Business is like bubble gum. Business is like bubble gum. That works. It grows best with consistent and constant pressure. That all works. Imagine if I would have written, business is like putting bubble gum in your mouth and then chew, 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 and then blow, 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 blow. That doesn't work. So learn how to phrase things are really important. Articulation and modulation, moving your voice around and speaking with clarity, having good diction. Volume. Volume is powerful, but don't think volume is about being loud. Sometimes if I want to drive a point home, I will almost go. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now I want you to take that fist and put it right out in front of you. Okay. Now listen carefully, because this is going to go fast. And just stay with me. Listen carefully. I want you to take your fist and I want you to place it right here. Okay. Now, make a circle. Okay? Take that circle. And I want you to right now Put it on your chin. 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 I I love those in the audience. You're going, I am. I got it there, Chucky. But you see, isn't it true that the visual overrode the verbal? And so you need to make sure that your verbal message and your vocal message and your visual message are all consistent. You don't get a second chance at a first impression. I put this in here only because I am always so shocked at how little people know about a first impression. Would you all believe that first impressions are vital? Okay, they are. And you don't get a second chance at a first impression. First impressions are kind of lasting, okay? If we were in a workshop and I had a whole day to play with you, we would do this very differently, but I don't have time. So I'm just going to tell you, when we meet somebody for the first time, we take in about 10, listen carefully, about 10 nonverbal bits of information. Nonverbal, 10 of them. And they happen at lightning speed. And I'm going to tell you, when we do those 10, and they're not always in chronological order, but when we do those 10, we're going to say, I like, I don't like, I trust, I don't trust, I feel good about, I don't feel good about. It's like instantaneous. So I don't have the luxury to workshop this, but I will ask. Just put your hand up and I'll call on you, okay? What do you think is the first thing we notice? What they're wearing, okay? Their clothing, not even clothes. Yes. I can't hear you. Where their hands are. Man, I've been doing this a long time and nobody's ever said that. Yes. Their eyes, part of the 10, not part of the first 3, actually. Yes. Facial expressions, good, no. Their posture. Oh, what are you talking about? I'm going to do one more. Yeah, the guy right there. Their attitude, no. Good answer, though, but it's not even close. When we meet somebody for the very first time, the first thing that we notice, this is going to knock your socks off. Think about that. Imagine that you were sitting in this audience. I was backstage. You hadn't seen me. And then they said, now let's just bring out Mr. Zamora, the presenter for today. And I walked out. I was in this suit, this shirt, this tie, these shoes, these socks. There was nothing different except I was blue. Don't you reckon that you would notice that I was blue before anything else? Thank you. But you would notice that, correct? Now let's be a little more serious. Imagine that we were in the dead of winter, which we are not. Let's imagine we were in the dead of winter and we were at this seminar and I had just spent 6 weeks in Hawaii, soaking up the sun, putting on the coconut oil, laying out in the sun every day. And I was as brown can be. I was as tan can be. And I walked out and stood in front of you in the dead of a Wisconsin winter, incredibly tanned, radiantly tanned. Isn't it true that you would notice that tan before you would notice the tie? Even this tie, okay? That's what you would notice. Number 2 is gender. Number 3 is age. Second girl right there, what's your name? Mara. Isn't it true that you have never seen me before in your life? And you didn't see me until you walked in here. And when I walked up here is when you first saw me. And as soon as you saw me, you said, white male, 25. No. Not even close. But at the end of the day, those things happen. And if you don't believe they happen, let me tell you, is that if you listen to the news and there was a bank robbery, and they will always tell you the perpetrator, if they kind of know, will say things like a white male 25 or a black female 42, or they'll give you those three things when they're talking about the perpetrator of something, okay? And that's because those are the first three we take in. From there, we will take in appearance, eyes, facial expressions, smell. You ever done that? Nice to meet you. Whoa. Nice to meet you over there. Movement. Yes. Okay, I can't get into that. We don't have time. Let me ask you a question. I wish I had time, but I am up against the clock right now, and we got tons still to do. At the end of the day, let me ask you a question. If I walked in here today and I stood like this and I never moved anything other than my lips, wouldn't that be kind of weird? Right? It'd be kind of hard maybe to listen intently after a while if I never move. On the other hand, if I said personal power, that doesn't work either. After movement comes personal space. Personal space is really important. Can you come up? Yeah. Stand over there. Is it Megan? Okay, stand over there. I want you to imagine that you are applying for a job with my company. My personal assistant calls me and says, Megan is here for her interview. I say, send her in. Okay. So you're going to walk through my door, which is open. You don't have to open the door. You're going to walk into my office and I am going to meet you. Okay. And what I'm going to tell you is that you and I are going to do, by the way, let me just fast forward this. The last one is called physical touch. We're going to, and let's assume you want this job. It's a really good paying job. And if you could get it, it'd be really cool. And you come in my office, I say, great, send her in. Come on in. Megan, is it? How are you? I'm very well. Megan, you're walking out of my office. Stand there. Don't worry. We're going to we're going to do this again. Say, great, send her in. Come on in. Megan, is it? How are you? Nice to meet you. Like, it's weird, right? So what we know is that we all have our personal space. Sometimes people talk about their bubble. They have a bubble. Okay? How do you know her comfortable bubble? I'll tell you how. Turn around, face me, we're going to interview. Okay? Now, I say, how are you? And I go to shake your hand. Okay? Whatever this angle is right here, if I match it, I'm in a space where you're comfortable. Correct? If I take one step in, totally uncomfortable. Okay, thank you. Give her a hand for coming up. We're going to have to scoot through some of this stuff very quickly, but I want to give you a couple of things that are really important, but I want to try to get through all of this. The power of a positive attitude. I can't even begin to tell you how important that is as you start to drive a life of success and a life of leadership. Research study that I looked at many years ago now, it was done at Ohio State University. It was a study that looked at success and failure. Okay? So what they did is they went out and they found 400 people who were incredibly successful. It didn't necessarily mean they had a lot of money, though I'm sure a lot of them did, but they were incredibly successful educators, or incredibly successful police officers, or incredibly successful doctors, or incredibly successful kindergarten teachers, whatever. They came from a myriad of places. And what they did, they asked them to take 100% and divide it between attitude, skill, and knowledge as to what made them successful. These could have been airline pilots, could have been lawyers, could have been someone that ran a flower shop. They came from a cross section of our society. And here's what they said. They said 90% of their success was about their attitude, and that skill and knowledge played a relatively minor role. It didn't mean that skill and knowledge weren't important, and it didn't mean that they didn't have skill or knowledge. They had a ton of skill and knowledge, but it wasn't the skill and it wasn't the knowledge that drove their success. It was their attitude about life. It was their attitude about business. It was their attitude about education. Anybody in here want to be an educator? I used to teach teachers, okay? I lectured at universities and with departments of education. Those that put their hand up, listen carefully. Do not go into the classroom with a desire to teach. That is awful. You should go into the classroom with a burning desire to inspire people to learn. That's a very different concept. You want people to fall in love with learning. As an educator, I taught, but I never went into the classroom trying to think that I had to teach them. I taught elementary school, math or science or English or spelling. I went in the classroom every day trying to get kids to fall in love with learning. Let me tell you, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what a past participle is. I have no clue. If someone said to me right now, I'll give you $1 million if you can tell me what the object of the preposition is, I'm going to lose $1 million because I wouldn't have a clue. But if I could get kids to fall in love with learning, I knew there were people out there that could teach them that kind of stuff, that could inspire them to want to learn what the past participle is, or the direct object of the preposition. I wanted kids to fall in love with learning. I wanted kids to fall in love with reading books. I don't know how much you read now, and I know you're in school and it's harder, but I got to tell you, I read, even at my age, and like I'm an old dude, but I read right now probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 books a year. Because I want to stay on top of things. Interesting in this research project. They went out and they found 400 people who were struggling in society. 400 people that didn't know where their next meal was going to come from. 400 people that didn't know where they were going to sleep that night. 400 people that on a cold winter rainy night would get underneath maybe a bridge on a freeway and sleep up in the top there where they could be out of the rain. 400 people that were struggling every day. And they grabbed these people and asked them to be a part of a research project and asked them, why are you where you are? And I will tell you that if we were in a workshop and we had time and we don't, and I had you workshop this, I will tell you that the majority of you, like me when I was sitting where you were sitting years and years and years ago in this seminar where I learned this, I would have said, and I will promise you, you would have said that somewheres more than 50% would weigh it in skill and knowledge. And it would be more. As a matter of fact, attitude You're failing because your attitude sits at about 10 to 15%. The rest is about if I had more skill and I had more knowledge, but I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I grew up in the barrio. I was homeless. Life was tough. But if I'd have gotten an education, that's what I thought they would say. Here's what they said. Exactly the same thing. When push comes to shove, they knew it was their attitude that was driving the life that they were leading. And let me tell you, I don't care who it is out there that's struggling. I will tell you right now, they have enough knowledge to do amazing things. That's a fact. About 80% of everything you'll ever know, you learn by the age of 8. You learned fine motor skills, gross motor skills. You learned how to talk. You learned how to read. You learned how to write. You learned how to ride a bike. You learned how to bounce. You learned how to skip rope. By the time you're 8 years old, you've learned all kinds of things. What you need to do is walk out of here knowing that the goal is to work at growing and building your attitude. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying you should work on it and grow it every day. James Brennan, in his book Power Play, said, the key to success is summed up in 4 words. This is so cool. I learned this. I read this probably 40 years ago. But he said the key to success is summed up in 4 words. And here they are. Your limitations are imaginary. You can go where you want to go. You can do what you want to do. You can have what you want to be. You want to have what you want to have. Be what you want to be. You can have it all once you believe you can have it all. And that you got an attitude and a fortitude that drives it. Success is summed up in 4 words. Your limitations are imaginary. But then he said, of course, you can't touch your right hand to your right elbow. And then he said, so what? Can't touch your right hand to your right elbow. Yeah, don't try. She's going, let me see. But then he said, so what? But could you go out and be enterprising and be an amazing business owner, or go out and become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or work in construction? Could you do things and be incredibly successful? My dad was an incredibly successful man. My dad designed and built a rock crushing plant. He was in construction. He was an amazing man, incredibly smart, only went to the 3rd grade. Grew up in the Depression. Couldn't go to school because he had to go work to try to help the family. But he was the general superintendent of a major construction company, and he designed and he built a rock crushing plant. But he had the most positive attitude about life. What stops people from maximizing their potential? I got to go through these quickly, but I'll give it to you. It's called the phantom diseases. Number 1 is worry. I'll tell you what, people worry about the dumbest things. Do I look okay? Is my butt too big? Like, how about this one? Is he gonna call? Like, is she gonna say yes? Dumb. We worry about crazy things. How many of you ever worried about passing a test? Hands up, come on. I know the solution. Here it is. Study. Seriously. How do I know that? My junior year in high school, and now listen, I was not an A grade student. I was one of those guys that I was in the top 10% of my class every year. Top 10% of the bottom third. I was not and have never been an academic. I struggled to get through high school. I struggled to get through college. Okay? but I just stayed. I just kept working at it. But people worry about the dumbest things. And worry is a killer. It impedes the progress of life. Number 2 is fear. Now, if you take the word fear and use it as an acronym, it stands for false evidence appearing real. Most of the things that you fear are nothing more than false evidences that appear real, and they create great fear. Number 3 is indecision. My daddy used to say to us, make a decision, right or wrong, doesn't matter. If it's wrong, you fix it up. If it's right, you keep going. But there's no value in indecision. Don't sit on the fence. Get stuff done. Sometimes you're going to make a bad decision. So what? Success is not the absence of failure. Success is the accumulation of knowledge gained from failure and then applied. So don't be afraid to try stuff. Don't be afraid to stick your neck out. Last 3, resentment, greed, and doubt. Doubt sees the obstacles. Faith sees the way. Doubt sees the darkest night. Faith sees the day. Doubt fears to take a step. Faith soars on high. Doubt questions who believes. Faith answers I. You need to develop a faith and a belief in you. If you believed in you as much as I believe in you, and I don't even know you and I believe in you, you would do amazing things. Okay, we're going to wrap this up with some goal setting. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up where you don't want to be. How true is that? So when we talk about goal setting, what we got to do is understand there are 3 types of people in the world. Number 1, those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what's happening. If you're going to a football game, the guys on the field are making it happen. The people in the stands are watching it happen. And everybody else is wondering what's happening. The challenge is that the people on the field that are making it happen paid the price to be on the field. They did the work. If you want to watch things happen, all you got to do is buy a ticket, buy a hot dog, nachos, and then sit there and cheer. Kind of simple. So are you going to make things happen? Are you going to watch things happen? Are you going to wonder what's happening? You're going to be one of the 3, I promise you. How do you define a goal? Let me give you mine, because we're running out of time. Years ago, there's a book it's called The 10 Natural Laws of Successful Time and Life Management. It's written by a guy named Hiram Smith. And in this book, what I'm going to give you right now, literally was not in a box. It wasn't highlighted. It wasn't bold. It wasn't in italics. It was just a part of a paragraph. And it was so mind-blowing for me because I had never conceptualized this before. But he said a goal is a planned, listen carefully, is a planned conflict with the status quo. A goal is a planned conflict with the status quo. And the status quo is how things are right now. And if you are not challenging how things are right now, then there's no need to set a goal. But if you're going to challenge how things are right now, then you need to be able to set goals. And what I'm telling you, kids, is that you came to this World Affairs seminar and you're talking about global health and wellness. What I want to do is I want to try to get inside your head to tell you that how important that is, but you're not going to do anything about it if you don't become leaders. And leaders focus on these 3 important keys: communication, attitude, and goals. Statistical breakdown of goal setters. Watch this. This is scary. 3% have firm written goals. They actually write them down. And this is not a to-do list. This is my goal. This is how I'm going to do it. This is who's going to be involved. This is when I'm going to have it done. This is what the price I'm going to pay, whatever it is. It's all is a process. If we were working with you all day, we would go through the process for you. 10% have firm unwritten goals. There is no doubt I'm going to finish high school and I'm going to go to a university. I already know the university I'm going to go to because I'm committed to going to that university, and I will do whatever I got to do to go to that university. And then after I go to that university, I'm going to get my doctorate, and then I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. My daughter has a degree in psychology and a degree in Spanish, and she studied in Spain, and now she's over in Europe, and she's going to do her PhD in industrial organizational psychology. She is really smart. She's like her mother, not like her father. But she has a lot of unwritten goals, a lot of things she wants to do, but she doesn't put pen to paper and write them down because she's 28 and she thinks she knows everything. I can say that because she's not here. 60% have vague goals. Vague goals are, I know I'm going to go to high school, and then after high school, I'm going to either go to college or I'm going to go do a trade. And then somewhere in the next 10 years, I'll probably get married, and then I'll have 1.4 children. I don't know what 0.4 of a kid looks like, but the national average, I think, is like 1.4 kids, you know, so there's legs walking around. So I don't know. And 27% of the adult population have no goals at all. What is frightening about that is that almost 90% of everybody as an adult in America either have no goals or vague goals. And we want to continue to be a world leader. There's a lot of work that needs to be done by all of us. How to be a star at goal setting. Here it is. STAR. Have the goal be specific, time frame, action oriented, and realistic. If I set a goal to run the 100-meter dash in the next Olympics, that would be stupid because it is totally unrealistic. I would have trouble running a 100-meter dash literally, much less thinking I could qualify for the Olympics. So it needs to be realistic. And you need to think through that process. It has to have an action plan to it. It needs to be time framed. This is when I'm going to start. This is when I'm going to finish it. And then it needs to be very, 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 very specific. You can't set a goal to lose a lot of weight. If you set a goal to lose a lot of weight, you'll probably get fat. But you know what you can do? You can set a goal to lose 12 pounds in the next year, which means you're going to lose a pound a month, which means you're going to lose a quarter of a pound a week. And that's a pretty realistic goal. And then you got to set out why you want it, who's going to help you get there, and the action plan. That's what it takes. As leaders, you need to work every day moving forward and becoming a master communicator. Every day, work on growing and building your attitude and your self-image and your self-worth. Focus on growing you. Fall in love with you, not narcissistically, but fall in love with you and know that you were designed and built and engineered and created for magnificence. You are not an accident. Let me tell you something. I have a son that I wish could have sat in one of these seats years ago. But he wouldn't have. I have a son who was born with Down syndrome. He was born totally blind, and he was born a mute. Now, through the grace of God, he sees and he talks. How does he see? He was born with severe bilateral congenital cataracts, and at 2.5 months of age, they took his eyes, cut him open, took the lenses out, took the jelly behind his lenses out, took out his cataracts, stitched his eyes back up, and sent him home with contact lenses and little blue glasses. And he sees. He'll never see like you see. He'll never run like you run. He'll never be able to say, should I go to this college or that college? Those aren't going to be his choices. They kept telling us that he would never talk, and so they said, you better teach him how to sign. And so by the time my son was 2.5 years old, he had the command of over 100, probably 200 signs. And he could tell you, he made up signs, by the way. Let's see who can get this. He made up signs. So this is me, or I, okay? And he would say, I want to go. Okay, where do you want to go? McDonald's. And he wanted to have a Big Mac hamburger. And my son is now 30. He has 3 jobs. He goes to work every day, all part-time. He works at Goodwill. He works at Ace Hardware. And he works at the local police station washing the cars every Wednesday. He washes all the squad cars. But he has the most positive, upbeat attitude you would ever want to see. And he challenges me to be the best that I can be, so that I can be the best for him every day. I wish I could spend a whole day with you guys. There's so much that I would love to share with you, but we've run out of time. What you see is what you'll be. Helen Keller was asked, what would be worse than being born blind? And she said, to be born with sight and have no vision. What is the vision that you have for you, for your school, for your community, for your city, for your state? What is the vision you have for the world? And how do you then help perpetuate those great visions? As you leave this world affairs seminar, make sure that you strive to influence the lives of others and have fun. Fun is a key. Trust me. I love what I do. I am closer to 80 than I am to 70, okay? Like I'm an old dude. But I love what I do. And I will do this as long as there are people that will listen to me. But I don't do it because it's work. I do it because it's fun. And let me just leave you with this. Fun is getting focused on goals, unite as a team. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and nurture those around you. That's how you become a great leader. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, I write quotes. There's just stuff in my head, literally stuff in my head. But I write weekly quotes. They go out to about 1,000 people around the world. I never, ever, ever say to people, give me your email address and I'll put it down and I'll say, because I don't want to be pushy. But if you would like to receive, like many students I work with, if you want to receive my weekly quote, all you got to do is email me and say, Chuck, add me to your list, and I will send you my weekly quotes until you decide to opt out, okay? And the young lady that got the book, come up and I'll sign it for you. It was a pleasure to be here. I hope you guys have a great week. God bless. Thanks. No,